Good afternoon, everyone. I, Pragya, welcome you all on behalf of Governance Now at Automation Tech Roundtable for the Public Sector. Today, we have Shri Ranjit Ghosh, HOD Systems, Coal India. We have Shri S.P. Nathani, General Manager and Head, CDT, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. We have Shri Maheshwari, General Manager IT, National Thermal Power Corporation Limited. We have Shri Mukund Sarad Hejib, Senior General Manager, ERP and IT, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. We have Shri B.S. Dalal, General Manager, IT and Information Security Officer, Airport Authorities of India. And we have Shri Pramod Agarwal, IMA, CTO, and Head of IQ Bot Products, Automation Anywhere, as the moderator of the session. I welcome you all. Since we know due to COVID-19 pandemic, that has prompted public sector organizations to accelerate their adoption of technology. So the roundtable focuses on how automation can solve the core business challenges of public sector organizations. So over to you, Pramod.
Thank you, Pragya, and thanks to Governance Now team for organizing this event. And I'm accompanied by some very established leaders from the PSU sector. Today, the focus of the discussion is going to be automation. And what we will do today is we will first sort of lay the land in terms of where the automation is in terms of the technology, and then talk to these leaders in understanding what is their view on automation and what are they thinking about with respect to adopting automation in their enterprises. So I'm going to share my screen. But it has been disabled. Pragya, can you enable screen sharing, please?
Yeah, it is enabled.
Okay. It tells me, okay, now I can. Now I can. Perfect. Okay, can you confirm if you can see the screen, which is a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the goal for today is basically to lay the land. Digital workforce has become a pretty common language where we are thinking about these digital widgets, if you will, as helping the human user in working through the day, right, on a variety of tasks and business processes. So at Automation Anywhere, we have, which is an Indian heritage company with 4 Indian co-founders who established the company in San Jose with a large engineering and marketing presence in India. So we have over 3 million bots. We call them digital workforce because they work alongside the human workforce in helping them carry out their tasks. So when we think about why this digital workforce is needed, I think this picture probably resonates with most of the audience that today the process execution, whether it is an order to cash process, fulfillment process, logistics, payment process, what have you, or back office finance or HR operations, they all are carried out through a number of software systems which corporations have adopted over the last 20 to 25 years of this digital journey. And over time, those systems have become established in the organizations. The communication systems like emails or portals has become established. Productivity software like Excel, Word, OpenOffice have become established. But when you think of the process which a human user is doing, they are doing this through a combination of all of these different capabilities that we talked about. And doing so requires a lot of manual work, which can be automated because the human interaction is not only about judgment, it's also about data entry, it's about reading a document, interpreting the document, or interpreting an email, right? So all of this can now be digitized, automated through these automation platforms. And once you automate over your thousands or hundreds of applications, and we have found that in large enterprises, 1,000 applications are very, very typical. A lot of applications are homegrown and some are also purchased from outside. You really have to construct a process, right? And when you construct a process using automation tools, you get to a level of simplification where the processes become less error prone, they become more repeatable and therefore automated. And therefore, you can define these processes based on your changing needs of the process. Because underlying system which stores the data like an HR system, finance system, supply chain system can still remain the same while your needs for the process continue to change based on the evolving needs of the customer or the stakeholder. And therefore, these tools can help you simplify the process execution based on your existing application systems that you have. So, and when you think about this automation, you have to think about that in an enterprise, everything is connected. One activity in the front office is not disconnected from back office. As an example, if a customer asks about the status of an order, that is not just a front office question. It is a question also about your manufacturing system, inventory systems, and shipment, and all those systems collaborate together to complete this customer journey of order fulfillment. And therefore, what we find is that organizations need to adopt a holistic automation approach where the front office, back office, and the employee interaction through these collaboration suites is automated through a single journey through single automation tool. And that's where the value of automation will truly be realized through these end-to-end automation platforms. So today, what we are finding also is that there are automation tools that are available within a particular application suite, like an SAP or a Microsoft or what have you. But what we find is that if you adopt a siloed approach to doing automation, then you're not looking at it at the process level, where you want to make the process orchestration simplified regardless of the underlying application. And therefore, what we believe is that while task level automation may be useful within the automation tool that a provider might provide, but when you're thinking about process and delivering this process for the end user journey, and for example, today, all of the customer channels many of them are digital today, right? And every enterprise has a need to deal with customers on multiple channels. And therefore, you need to really think about a single automation tool. Now, we believe that you need a modern platform, not just a makeshift automation platform that is being ported from a classic monolith and to host it on the cloud. You need a modern platform because a modern platform can deliver you a very connected single platform where you can discover what needs to be automated. You can digitize through tools like IDP tools for processing documents, processing emails, etc., or reading computer screens, and then automate them and then optimize the whole process. So when you take a single platform approach, we typically find that you can automate more, right? Because you don't have gaps in the automation story. A cloud native platform is important because it gives you a lower cost platform from a manageability perspective, security perspective. And if you can think about a cloud hosted platform or a SaaS platform, that further reduces your cost of management and operations. Lastly, a platform which is enterprise ready, and the typical characteristics of today's enterprise grade platforms happen to be web-based, easy to deploy, consumer grade experiences that allows you to scale not only from a process perspective, but the number of users you can reach, which have all become participant in the digital and automation experience. Right. So if you think about your workforce, the workforce that has been hired after, let us say, 2005, right? So good 15, 16 years. They've all come with very good technical skills, which they've acquired through their education and also through their exposure to the digital tools in their consumer experiences through maybe Gmail, Amazon, etc., and applications instead. So these are very, very tech-heavy workforce that you're dealing with, and therefore it's important to give them tools where they can do this automation themselves. And we call this citizen-led development or citizen development, where the average business user can collaborate with these tools and maybe in some cases take help from a programmer to deliver these experiences for themselves at the enterprise scale. And why you need an enterprise grade platform is so you can put the right security controls while you're allowing these citizen developers to participate in this innovation journey. And going back to the single platform, I think it becomes important because when you're discovering what needs to be automated, you want to create, for example, definitions of this to be automated process that you can then go ahead and automate within the same platform. If these are disconnected set of tools, as many of our competitors are building or buying, in that case, you pick up some, say, to be automated definition from a discovery tool, and then you have to do something with it before you can automate. And overall, the cost of managing such platforms can be fairly high. And I think everybody who's in the IT knows the pain of integration and the cost of integration that we go through. I think some time ago I learned that 80% of an enterprise cost is in just integration and management of software. But if you go with an integrated platform, you don't have those costs, where you can discover more, you can automate more, and you can optimize within the same tool set. I'll not go over this for the sake of time, but I do want to go over why our Automation 360, which is our current platform, scales faster. There are many aspects of a modern software that are important to understand in making this happen, such as reduced time to set up, a more intuitive web-based UI, which users are used to today, for creating bots faster, reducing training because the software is intuitive. It tells you what these commands are. It's easy to troubleshoot. And because it is web deployed, there is literally very, very low cost of IT in managing in the deployment of the platform and the upgrade and updates of the platform, which is where a lot of costs can typically go. And the centralized nature of the management console also allows you to manage it really well and establish controls which you need for managing an enterprise grade system. Now, when you're automating, going back to this whole journey of discovery and automating, one thing that we are realizing, and we have been leaders in the space of cognitive automation, is that a lot of processes require a human being to react to a text in the email, a document like a contract document, invoice document, and then do an action based on that. But today the technology has come to a point where extracting meaning out of an email, for example, if a supplier wants to know where his payment is stuck, right? Then somebody does not read the email, right? This work of reading the email can be done by the computers. And that's what we call cognitive, where the computers now have the ability to interpret the language really, really well, including the emotions and the main key content of the email. Similarly, a lot of customer experiences can be moved to a conversational or a voice experience, because today, commonly we have tools like Google Home and Alexa, which can understand voice. Right? So the same technology can be adopted in making customer experiences better, where a customer is not waiting on the line to talk to somebody, but a computer can act as a very good middleman in interjecting and answering that question in a lot of cases. And if you have automation toolsets like RPA in the back end, then this conversation is not just about answering. It can also be about going back to your backend systems and getting the answer back. Right? For example, if you have, let us say, if you're delivering coal and somebody wants to know where is my lorry stuck, you should be able to tell that person live, where is this lorry and why is the lorry stuck? Right? So huge applications in improving customer experience, especially, and reducing the cost of delivering better experience to customers. Now, when you think about all of that, you still, I think many of you are thinking about, still we work in a very fragmented application landscape, right? So if you automate, am I transferring all controls over to the computer with no control for the human? Right? And rarely the processes are so simple that you can do without a human being, right? So even if you digitize and then on top of digitization you automate, you still need human intervention in many cases. Right? And therefore, we built a tool called robotic interface. We call it RE, Automation Anywhere Robotic Interface, which allows this user, once you have done the automation, to retain control over different steps of the process. So as an example, this user may be watching a process where customer is sending an email, the email is interpreted, and in some cases, if the email interpretation requires humans involvement, then that notification can come to the human user. They can interact with it and kick off the next set of the processing. Right? And these steps in the process can be either your standard applications like SAP, your custom applications, or they can be automations like document reading and then extracting meaning and applying it for that particular business context. But what this robotic interface does is it allows you to automate, but it allows you to retain control by the human user on an as-needed basis. So when you're working on a case or a process, you have full control on this fully automated system. And we're finding a lot of applications of this starting out in, especially in customer service and in more complex process arrangements where the human user is key to delivering the real value. Lastly, I think from a enterprise perspective, and especially from a PSU perspective, I find it very important that we are able to share the intelligence that we're developing within the enterprise, because many PSUs are very, very large with lots of different business units. Or within PSUs, so if you're within, let's say, power sector, energy sector, banking, right? You can have shared assets. So we have a concept called private bot store, which allows you to develop these automations and share, right? And you can do that while maintaining full security on these bot assets. Right? So I think a fantastic way to collaborate while you retain control. Now, why you automate? I think panelists and I think the audience is very aware that today operational efficiency, better experiences, governance has become a huge differentiator today between enterprises, and making sure that the governance is at the right level requires a lot of work, right? And with the bots, you can not just tighten, but you can also do reporting on not just on an exception basis, but on a every transaction basis. And it allows you to improve your governance, and through your AI, you can also establish more automated controls in delivering that governance. Right? And I think from a human capital perspective, if you have automation to support your human workforce, then your human workforce is more liberated in doing more productive work and is a happier workforce to help you build more value in your organization. Now, we have been in the business for about 15 years. We have seen all across the business functions, whether it is finance, operations, asset management, procurement. There are applications in every area where automation can help deliver value. So with that, Pragya, I'm going to stop my share, and we'll go to the panel discussion. So hopefully the context setting was helpful to the audience. So what we will do now is, I have a list of questions that I wanted to ask my fellow colleagues. So we'll start with Mr. Ranjit Ghosh from Coal India. And so the first question I want to ask every panelist is, I think digital transformation has become a priority, and a lot of technologies are emerging to help you with that. So from your perspective, when you look at digital transformation concept, what are the demands you are seeing from your perspective that are immediate that you need to fulfill in order to lead the organizations to, say, this post-pandemic world where the world is definitely changing?
Yeah. Coal India Limited, a mining company, has many planned activities which point towards very high level of digitization. We have started late, but surely we are moving in the right direction of digitization. Our implementation of SAP has already taken place, and it will be complete within next October. As far as data is concerned, whether you can say big data or huge data, data availability is no issue with our company. Now, the demand for digitization is mainly in the process aspect. The mining activities, where most of the operational cost is involved, we require digitization in that aspect in the first place. We have already taken action for digitizing 7 mines. Very reputed firms were involved in the whole thought process. And finally, it is going to be contract is going to be given to a very big house. I cannot name it. Apart from that, we are also getting demand from asset monitoring people, then contract management, document management, bots, use of bots, people are asking for. There are a lot of expectation of our officers and all stakeholders, even consumers. They are demanding a lot of digitization in Coal India. But having said that, Coal India is amalgamation of say around 400 mines. And all mines before privatization were controlled by different houses. So the work culture in all those mines are different, even today. So the most important thing of digitization, I hope we will all agree, is the change management, which is the biggest challenge for Coal India. This is a labor-intensive industry. We have got around 2.8 lakh laborers working in coal mines. So that is the biggest challenge. And hopefully, as we are working on that, hopefully we'll be able to overcome that, not in very short time, but it will take considerable amount of time. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. I think you highlighted some very key points, even beyond what you do, how you do it and how you can get it done through a proper change management. Mr. Dalal, I think probably the same question to you. How are you looking at digital transformation, and what are some interesting technologies that you are interested in right now?
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me tell you that I represent Airports Authority of India, which is primarily into the, there are two main business which we handle. One is the air traffic control management, and other businesses that airport facilitation, airport runway management, maintenance, and airport terminal management and services. So these are two core business which we manage. Now, as far as our air traffic control is concerned, we have adopted automation long back. Let me be very, we were probably some of the first people to start a automation process. I was in charge of a data center at Bombay, which was a fully functional automated message transmission system in 1989, and that used the mainframe systems. So that is how. And the air traffic control is again, we did the automation in 94, 95 to be at the level of, you know, some of the best air traffic control systems at Bombay and Delhi. So we had adopted some technologies in that area quite some time back. But automation, as I talk of automation, it should solve basically two major problems it should address. One is that when we do automation, we must primarily focus that the data is captured at source. And data is used automatically, and if it can be captured automatically, nothing like it. I'll give you an example how we have done certain things on that area. And captured once and used as and wherever required. Okay. Then other problem, it should solve some real life problems. It's not that we should get into automation just like that. It should solve some real life problems. Now, I'll give you some examples, which, I mean, we have got a very good framework for addressing some of our issues through innovation. And we had actually, we are encouraging the firms which are registered with DIBP in providing various solutions for our day-to-day problems. And we started this process about 2 years back, and we are giving them grants also. And some of the solutions have really come up, like one of the agency which we have shortlisted has deployed a long-range van, LoRa van, at the airport. Now, what we are doing is that there is a system called visual docking and guidance system that helps the aircraft to come and park at a specific bay. Now we have in India very unfortunate thing that these systems abroad are all integrated systems. But for each bay, we have a VDGS which doesn't talk to the other VDGS. That's how they have been, and they have been implemented like this by the private airports also. Very unfortunate, even Delhi, and they have gone into automation later. I mean, they have purchased the software. There are integrations available abroad. But what we have done is, I mean, because those integrations were very costly, what we have done is, we have one of the innovators came to us and he said that he can do the integration, and we really like the solution, and we have gone with him, and it is now at a stage where this can be implemented in real life solutions. And this integrates with, we have something called Airport Operations Control Center. See, this provides very critical data for the Airport Operations Control Center, which is being fed manually now.
Yeah.
And manual data feeding always has some discrepancies.
Yeah.
The airlines question it. So many things are there. So this is something which will capture those. These are actually, we capture the time of parking of the aircraft. We call it docks on time. So as he comes, we capture that time. As he stops, the pilot stops the aircraft, we capture that time, and as he leaves, we capture that time. Now this time is used for many calculations in the the delays, and so many things are done. So the Airport Operations Control Center, these timings were being fed manually. So one of the problem which we have solved, I mean, we are likely to solve shortly. And let me tell you, the solution is available, already available. I mean, it's being provided by 2 companies in the world, and they charge exorbitant costs. If we are able to develop it, we will be able to do it at much less cost. So there are, I mean, quite a few innovations of that kind. Another innovation which we are, I mean, it looks very simple thing, but you see, we every day in the morning and evening, our engineers go to the field, because some of our landing aids and they're installed in field, and we have to capture the radiation data in the field to see that these are giving the right guidance to the aircraft. So we have to capture the data, compare it with the the data which was done at the time of when these were calibrated, and then if there is deviations, then we have to take corrective actions on that. Now this is all a manual. This has been all along a manual process. Now again, we have gotten, I mean, with one of the startup firms, and now he is deploying the automation in this area, so that certain IoTs, they are able to capture all through the day.
Yeah.
It's not only morning and evening. The data is captured in real time, and it is being sent to the control center, control room, where it is processed automatically. So this is another problem which, I mean, we are trying to address through the innovation and through the startup. Now, see, as we are moving on this journey of automation, there are a couple of challenges. I mean, let me talk of those also.
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenges as we are coming to in this area is going to be the area, I mean, the IoTs, when you are putting, the cybersecurity is a big challenge, because there are no guidelines for, I mean, not much of guidelines are available, not much of, frameworks are available for IoTs. So cybersecurity is a big, I mean, challenge which we are going to face. So we have to address those challenges as we go on this journey. And particularly in aviation, there are multiple stakeholders. Bringing all stakeholders on a single platform, making them to agree to some kind of process, once which has been automated. So that becomes another challenge. And then, resistance from business also comes. That is, I mean, whether we agree to this or we do not agree to this, there is always a, whenever you bring automation, there is a resistance from business. Because business feels that we, I mean, the IT, and let me tell you, the business also doesn't understand what they need. This is another practical problem. I mean, somebody has to really sit with the business, and consultants are needed for this purpose. Before you embark upon a journey of automation of a business process, somebody who understands the process has to sit with the business to make them understand that, look, what you may have been doing right throughout your life, but there are so many wrongs in that,
Right.
which has to be made right. That is why the automation is needed, and that is why, I mean, some experts from outside are needed. So you have to make, I mean, you may be very good in your business process, but it can be more efficient. I mean, they have to be given that point has to be made across, that it has to be. So this is another challenge which come up in this journey of the automation. And this I think everybody faces these challenges, and this is where, I mean, people like, and I agree with Pramodji, one thing that have established platform for automation is very important for integration. Because we definitely we keep on building. I have got a software which we got developed in 2004. Now this is already legacy, and we are practically not able to get away with it. We have to continue with it for longer time. But we have to definitely, there is a need to integrate, and integrating them on the existing. It's better to have a simplified and a simple and good platform whereby where we can understand what is the need for what all is to be integrated and what all is expected out of that integration. So if these two factors are known, then probably we can do a good job with that. Thank you.
Very insightful comments, Mr. Raj. So a couple of things came to mind as you were talking about the visual system not being connected with each other. This is what typically happens in any business process journey, where things become fragmented over time, and you need to really connect them together. And while the legacy system has a lot of value, you cannot just dispose it of, or you cannot rewrite these systems over and over every time that you have a new need for sort of connecting everything together and removing the siloed approach to whenever that system was developed. That's where a connectivity platform like an automation platform can be very helpful. So I think you were talking about cybersecurity, and one idea that we've seen work very well is, whether it is this in the audit or regulatory reporting or the cybersecurity area, one is to establish the controls. And you establish the controls, you establish, say, network perimeters, what have you, when you're establishing your IoT network. But the other idea is to monitor these controls. And that's where we have seen bots being very effective in making sure that the policies are being administered correctly. Nobody's tampering with the policies. And the bots can do that job of reporting on these, on the perimeters, the violations of policies, violation of perimeters, very effectively, more than a human being can. And then you can have the bots do that job, and then you can build some analytics on top to really do a real-time monitoring of what is really happening. Because in cybersecurity, situation is never static. It's very, very dynamic. And you cannot respond to a dynamic situation with a static system of controls. And that's where the bots can play a huge role in strengthening the cybersecurity system and putting the right. With that, let me go to Mr. Bishoy. And he's definitely not bored, even though his background. So Mr. Bishoy, your thoughts, please, on the same topic.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pramod. Good afternoon to all the participants and audience. I am from NTPC Limited. NTPC is the largest power producer of India. We have around 65,800 megawatt capacity and producing, which is around 20% of India's capacity, but we are producing 25% of power of India's need. So the journey for digital transformation has started around 5-6 years back in NTPC. Let me tell, we are operating SAP as a ERP from 2007-8 onwards. And also the real-time data of the plants we are getting through PI system since then. But there was a need in the 2016 and 17. Our management felt that all our approval processes were manual. So we launched a campaign of digital transformation under Project Pradeep. Pradeep is the acronym for Proactive Digital Initiative to Become Paperless. And all our processes and approvals were made to be through digital medium. So there was, as Mr. Dalal was hinting, there was a lot of resistance initially from the business. If without signature, how everything can be approved? Who will reply vigilance? Who will reply to the auditors? Where are the background papers to be checked and other things? What our management said, put, is insisted कि नहीं, we'll go for digital transformation, and we took approval from the board कि the electronic signature will work within the company for all our decisions, and for outside papers there will be digital signatures. So that was the rule we established, and we identified all approval processes, and the processes which were some of the processes were simplified, 260 processes. Let me tell, today we are 100%, not 100%, 98% paperless, except one or two processes which otherwise is being registered. Because example I can give you, the material out yet pass. If you don't give paper, then the fellow who takes the material out, police and other things for checking and other things, that becomes a problem. So that kind of things are pending. Otherwise, we have set tons of papers of in this way. It is a we have saved the environment also. So that has been done. So before the pandemic also, we are comfortable on that front. Before pandemic also, we are planning for other things. Digital virtual office. Virtual office, we are thinking of to go for which technology, which product and other things. So now we have, before the lockdown, we implemented AM365, a Microsoft product. Today it is almost implemented, and it is a total cloud platform that we are utilizing for all our meetings and mails, and then all the files and everything. So now our next attention is to OT area. OT area, as you know, presently Government of India is going for green energy, renewable energy. So NTPC has around 72 plants all over India. Now the thermal plants will be becoming lesser and lesser, and government will not sanction any more thermal plants. And also the thermal plants which will be running, they will be running in less capacity during the daytime when the solar power is there and other things. So now our next focus is operation technology, how to control the operations, how to make the generation up and down in a smooth way. Because night time we have to provide thermal power because there is no solar power. So we are talking to several of our technology partners. Technology is available today in many forms, but let me tell you, technology is not it does not come ready-made. It has to be customized to suit your need. So lot of POCs we are carrying out, whether it is asset management, whether it is drone related video analytics software, or other things. And then also as through Automation Anywhere, we have some POC for RPA projects, which will be rolling out shortly for our invoice capturing data in SAP. That is our focus. Also, we are going to cloud in a big way. We have decided to no more go for, although presently we have got DC and DR fully managed by our internal resources. Future hardware will be going to cloud. For example, this we are planning a data lake for our OT data, because OT data is a lot of data. And the data are generated on real-time basis. If we are to analyze and take decision on that data, we require huge storage and analytics. So we are planning to go to cloud. Presently, we are in talk with a lot of vendors. Then what are the modes, and we have to also, being a PSU, we have to see the guidelines of the government. We cannot violate that. So presently, we are in the process of finalizing our tenders and other things. So it will be a sort of rate contract. So whenever our next lot of hardware has to replace, whether it is for ERP, where our project Pradeep, or our other applications, all will now go to cloud. So slowly and slowly. So let me tell the last lockdown, we did not face any problem because power is an essential product and it has to be delivered 24/7. So the last lockdown was not an issue for us. We worked smoothly, and all our systems are paperless. So vendors did not face any problem in interacting with and supplying the products and taking orders, raising their invoice through the systems. Everything was paperless. So our now focus is on OT area, and we are on job for that. Uh, that's all from me.
Thank you, Mr. Bishoy. Good luck with your OT project. I think these are mammoth undertakings. And as you work on, I think, the operational technology, and I think you have some of the very right ideas about data lakes and how do you harness value of data from the operational data. I think one thing that we have seen that connects really well operational data to actionable insights and actions on the part of the systems of the people is, I think, the automation click can play a role for you. And now that you've gone through a large scale paperless processes at 98%, which is very, very impressive. I think the first stage is making them paperless, and the next stage is putting automation on top. So it'll be great to have some conversations around how do we put automations on top of these digital systems that you've already built. And let me welcome Mr. Nethani at this point. He just joined. Mr. Nethani, we are sort of going over how are you viewing the digital transformation needs in your corporation and how you're seeing these technologies play a role. But before I give you the mic, I think Mr. Mukund has been waiting. He's been with us. So let Mr. Mukund come in, and then Mr. Nethani will go to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod ji. I am from Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, and before I talk about what we have done in Power Grid, I think it's a good idea that I give a small background. Power Grid is basically a national power transmission company, a CPSU under Ministry of Power, with its transmission network spread over the entire length and breadth of India. We have around 250 EHV substations and around 1.7 lakh circuit kilometers of EHV lines, that is extra high voltage lines, that is 220 kV and above, across India. Then we have, on most of the substations, there will be transformer, and the cumulative transformation capacity is around 4.25 lakh MVA. We have interstate transmission capacity of around 1 lakh MVA. Well, most of these 250 EHV substations, most of them will have skeletal manpower for maintenance sake, because we have to ensure 24/7 availability, and so in case of any problem, immediately our maintenance staff has to rush. Of course, there are few substations which are totally unmanned, and that all has been made possible due to automation. I will come to it about later. Power Grid also has a business vertical called PowerTel, which is into the telecom business segments, including National Long Distance Service, ISP, then MPLS connectivity, clean pipe connectivity, then we have DNS service, SD-WAN, then we also give tower space with power supply. Power Grid has an all India broadband telecom network of around 63,000 kilometers. We have points of presence on 714 locations We have intra-city network in 206 cities. We operate our backbone telecom network availability at around 99.5%. We have a 3-tier hierarchy, corporate office at Gurgaon. Then we have regionals. We are entire Power Grid is segregated in 10 different regions, and for each region there is a regional headquarters. So we have around 10 regional headquarters. Then we have more than 300 site offices. That site offices include the substations as well as transmission line maintenance offices. And the total number of employees are around 9,500. Almost all of our offices are interconnected through our own MPLS network. Now coming to the various initiatives. The first major initiative which I would talk is about OT only. Power Grid took major big step, which I can say it has totally transformed our core operation, that is transmission system operation and management, to digital domain. We implemented a nationwide project which upgraded all our legacy substations to digital substation. We have implemented IEC 61850 based substation automation system in those substations, and then we also set up one national transmission asset management center, and all these substations are basically connected to our own exclusive MPLS connectivity to this NTAMC. So now we are able to control all these substations from a single roof of NTAMC, and this is in fact one of the major activity which has totally transformed. Now whatever new substations are coming, they are all equipped with substation automation system, and they get integrated with NTAMC. So this project has brought down our requirement of manpower in operations, because earlier 24/7 in each substation there will be 2 to 3 people in shift. So all put together around you can calculate 3 into means 4 people into shift, and all these 250 places, so around 1,000 operation staff we were able to economize, because all this is being operated now from NTAMC. Now we are going in next stage of that we want to further take the digitizing of substation to next level by implementing process bus technology. Recently, we have upgraded our Malerkotla substation to a fully digital substation, and process bus technology, what basically it does is it converts the instrument transformer output immediately into digital values, and even the communication between the instrument transformer to the protective relays, it becomes digital. And the next big project what Power Grid has recently in last years completed is we have implemented a nationwide unified real-time dynamic state measurement scheme, that is URTDSM, in which we have implemented around 1,400 phaser measurement units in various substations across country. Before phaser measurement units were installed, our load dispatch center used to get only static data from substations. The static data consists of basically voltage, frequency, active and reactive power, and on-off status of circuit breaker. Now with PMUs installed, the one major advantage is PMU has a very high sampling frequency. So we are able to get the dynamic state of the system, and the major parameter which matters for in managing the grid is the phasor value. So with the phasor value, we are able to see how the system, what is the system state, what is the stability of the system. Then by developing various analytics, the data from on this data from these PMUs, we can identify various operational status issues in and take timely preventive action. This analytics can also address the linear state estimation issue, then zone 3 supervised protection. Then we can also carry out vulnerability assessment of distance protection, and we can even calibrate our instrument transformer, the voltage transformers in the system. Then we have also recently designed and implemented a renewable energy monitoring center for forecasting, tracking, scheduling, and dispatch of renewable generation. So these are basically the major ones. Then of course there are some other smaller initiatives what we have taken. We have implemented 14 numbers of STATCOMs at various substations. So to monitor, to manage the reactive power. Then we have also recently we have gone for latest diagnostic techniques for health monitoring of our EH equipment, including the transformer health monitoring indexing. And as far as ERP system is there, Power Grid implemented ERP, SAP-based ERP in 2014, and we have integrated around 2,000 business processes, and off and off as the time is going, the acceptance of ERP is increasing, and we are really seeing the very positive effect on this. And now we are in a state to consider the next level, that is business analytics, and even we are looking for RPA. We have taken some POCs for RPA also.
Wonderful.
So I think that's about it from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Ji. Several very important points. I think loved the story about how vast your network is and how deep the automation of various transformers has been. And maybe sometime we should have a conversation around how is it translating to better customer experiences? What is the integration of all this automated infrastructure with the end user delivery systems? That would be something I would be interested in talking about. But meanwhile, we'll go to Mr. Nathani here. Mr. Nathani, the discussion obviously, as you can guess, is about transformation and software related automation. So would love to hear your comments on that.
Thank you very much, Agrawal sir. First of all, my apologies to you, to my fellow panelists, as well as the participants. There was an unscheduled meeting with my director, which went on till well past 1, which I had absolutely no control on. We live in very difficult times, and as I talk, 3 of my core team members are hospitalized because of this COVID problem. So we're dealing with all these situations, and when we talk about the situation, what comes straight away to my mind is the way IT has come to the rescue of all the companies in the past 1 year in respect of ensuring continuity of business operations, in respect of strengthening our communications, our networking. DHL also has a very, very geographically spread domain. If you talk about, we have 16 major manufacturing units, and we have more than 50 project sites in India and abroad. And we did have IT connectivity prior to the last lockdown that we had last year. But that spurred us on in respect of ensuring that, first of all, we have connectivity, and then we also need to have our people working from home, which is not a concept which is actually very common with manufacturing industry, and then with the PSU, so to speak of. But a lot of good work has been done, a lot of lessons have been learned, and we are still learning them. Under time, more than 50% of our executives are connected on our VPN. They can work from anywhere, anytime. All our sites as well as our units are connected on MPLS, and my colleague from PGCIL was sharing about PowerTel. In fact, we're using their services as our secondary, as a second this thing for our connectivity. Coming to the automation part, I'll straight away jump to the main topic. Insofar as our let me say the existing business of thermal power stations or hydro stations or nuclear stations is concerned, automation was always a part of it, because in these complex situations where you have thousands of equipment coming together to ensure that you have generation available continuously, you cannot depend upon human manpower. So there were already state-of-the-art applications available, which were collecting a lot of data from different data points, starting from very, very small motors all the way up to the main boiler, turbine, generator, the entire wherewithal. Where it all stopped was that initially all the decisions were left to the operator. In case some set points were exceeded, the operator had to take a call. And now we are going into a situation where we are talking about a certain level of automation, where you have not more than 1 or 2 operators in the control room who are already controlling the situation based on algorithms which are already built in. The next set of challenges that we are seeing in this direction, or I'd say opportunities that we're seeing in this direction, is actually the prognostication, the diagnostics and the prognostication of existing systems. Since we are collecting so much data from different data points, how do we ensure that if I can have an algorithm where I collect data, let's say I'm collecting the bearing temperature from an equipment, can it give me over a period of time a picture about the healthiness of that bearing? Because if that bearing is lost, the motor is lost. If the motor is lost, maybe a bigger equipment will be lost. So it's a sequence. So you have to build an algorithm in the background, which has a logic based on domain experience, based on the technical knowledge that we have. And then we have a kind of a logic which says that if the temperature exceeds this set point so many times, then probably it's time for you to think of replacing the bearing or taking a look at the bearing or whatever it may be. So one of the most important things that we are working on right now, in fact, there are solutions which are already deployed in 2 or 3 power stations in the country today by BHEL, which we call remote monitoring and diagnostics. Essentially, we are collecting data from a power unit, which is getting remotely transmitted to a central control facility, where the algorithm allows us as well as the customer to take a look and be prepared for these kind of eventualities. Rather than seeing a situation where an equipment fails, we be prepared for that equipment failure with maybe a spare in hand before the problem actually occurs. So this is more in respect of the business that is there. And when I'm talking about business, I'm talking about conventional business. But when we are talking about the new businesses that BHEL is very seriously looking at, things like transportation, things like oil and gas, these are areas where the automation requirements are of a very different kind. So if I can share with you, the railways have been doing a lot of great work in the past, and they are still continuing to do a huge amount of investment is going on. And the next set of challenge that I'm seeing, the tracks are getting upgraded or new tracks are being laid. You have state-of-the-art rolling stock. But the bigger challenge that is there in front of us now to make sure that we have faster, safer trains is the signaling system. And that's a different generation altogether compared to what we've been living in. So we are already trying to work in these areas where we have the signaling systems which are on par with what is there in the European continent or in the American continent. So these are all things which are coming to us now, and it's a kind of a step thing. It's not something that we had done before, and it's not something that anybody in the country has done before. But these are definitely areas which have a huge potential for the country if it has to go from where we are today. In respect of our manufacturing operations, automation has a very different kind of a challenge. We are a PSU. We are supposed to generate employment also, and the moment you talk automation, you talk about replacing people, which is not feasible for us. But we see automation in a slightly different context here. We see automation in respect of enhancing the productivity of the operation, in respect of bringing down the failure rate, bringing down, increasing the safety of the operation. There will be certain critical areas where human intervention or human activity may not be the most preferred solution. But because automation was not available, so it was being done like that. We can talk about robotic welding for that matter. Difficult to access areas, critical areas. So if we want to enhance the safety environment in which the people are working, if we want to enhance the quality of the equipment that we are manufacturing, then automation is something that we are very keenly looking at, and it is working on different levels in respect of adding on to the machine or to the manufacturing equipment that we have by deploying various uh, uh, let me say constituents that IIoT allows us today to let's say to measure the healthiness of a machine, to measure the accuracy of the machine, to give an advance warning if the accuracy that we wanted from the machine is going down becomes available to us. To also quality related issues where so far the practice is that on a manufacturing line, normally the quality people will be doing some testing, and then go back to their seats and enter something in their books or something of that sort. So we are trying to change all that to a situation where, with the help of handheld devices, you are actually able to capture what you have done, whether you have passed an equipment, whether you rejected an equipment, or the stage inspection that has happened. So we see that automation in manufacturing in a slightly different domain, not in respect of replacement of manpower, but in respect of enhancing the quality of the work, the output that is being done, and that is very much required because I think all my fellow panelists will agree with me. India has made a transition from a situation where we used to have a fair amount of people who were well versed in the trade in which they used to work, to a situation where in the past 20 years not much investment was done, especially in the skilled trade areas. That's why the honorable prime minister, I think, brought about the skill India initiative, which will take some time to bear fruits. But what we've been seeing is that despite the fact that PSUs invest very heavily in apprentice training and everything, you do not have that quality and experience of tradesmen who are required to do the jobs. So if you want to make your operations safer, it is imperative that we bring in automation, digitalization to kind of supplement whatever activities these people are doing, to keep a check on what they're doing and make sure that things do not let pass. The last dimension that Agarwal Sahab I'd like to capture is a lot of initiatives that the government has taken in ensuring that operations become automated, they become paperless. So, a couple of examples. I think all of us are familiar with the GEM portal, which is helping us a lot. And there, what we are seeing is that because the government has a system now, earlier we used to have a lot of problems in respect of the policies that we had made, where there used to be so many questions, one mistake somewhere, and then suddenly some harder rule would come in, which would make it difficult. Compliance would become the order of the day rather than the speed of the activity. But I think GEM has a great potential to change all that, because there's a transparent mechanism available, managed and monitored by the government, which allows manufacturers and service providers to come on board. And you can actually, I mean, I was amazed. In my company, we used to do reverse auction as a practice for ages together. But normally the reverse auctions used to be limited to something like maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. People would not do more than that. I was really amazed that in GEM, the RA goes on for 48 hours. The people are doing it from remote, and it's practical, it's possible, feasible today, right? So that's one initiative. The other initiative is in respect of a lot of effort that the government is making through various ministries in trying to bring things together. There's one very good initiative launched by the Department of Science and Technology called ICPS. It's Interdisciplinary Cyber Physical Systems. What the government has done is they've selected 25 IITs, and they're calling them technology innovation hubs. So they have been assigned one particular cyber area. It may be IIoT, it may be facial recognition, it may be some other facet of digitization. So they have been given very, very substantial budgets, and they've been asked to go to industry to find out what practical solutions are required, so that they can sit down and give those solutions and maybe think in terms of commercializing them. We started engaging with some of these TIHs, and things look promising right now. Wonderful. So that also helps us in bringing down the dependence that we have today on, let's say, Japan or Korea or Germany for the technology that we need. Because if we have people working on these practical problems, and then you have institutions of repute like the IITs working on this, you have a systematized, continuous fallback that you require for these kind of solutions. So I think things are exciting, though the situation is difficult. But even in the PSU setup, and I'm sorry I'm saying it like this because normally PSUs are taken to be a kind of a in the not in the vanguard, but behind the private sector. But I think a lot of good work is happening in the entire public sector in respect of both digitalization as well as automation.
I would totally agree with that. I think leaders like yourself, and I think where we are as a country, we're a very tech-savvy country, and we realized that suddenly when the pandemic happened, how tech-savvy we are. In fact, a lot of companies which moved operations virtually within days and became productive within days. I think that was just testament to our ability to bring the change about. So we have about officially 5 minutes left, but I think I'd like to extend it by 10 minutes if people are okay with that, because I want to ask a couple of questions. And I'm really enjoying the wealth of information that you guys have brought forward today. And Mr. Nathani, by the way, I went to BHEL in 1992 as an intern in Haridwar unit. I was a metallurgy student at IIT Roorkee, and BHEL was sort of the place to go to for a metallurgist to really understand the welding. And so it was very, and I remember that there was a particular turbine, I forget the specs now, but it's one of the largest turbines that BHEL was at that time developing. And that was a wonderful experience at BHEL.
Since then, Agarwal Sahab, I think things have moved a lot. That was the era of subcritical technology. So 500 megawatt unit would have been the size. Correct. Today we have gone to supercritical and now into nuclear turbines of a much larger size. Bhardwaj Touchwood is doing well.
Yeah. So I think you also talked about some of the very important areas like operational technology and predictive maintenance. And I think preventive to predictive is really the transformation that is happening. And I think in that area, I think automation can play a huge role because you have the ability to capture data at source, do AI modeling on those, and then help connect these decisions of the AI systems to your other business process systems. And I think this is where I want to move the conversation in the next 10 minutes or so, that we've talked a lot about operational technology and operational areas, but I think there is a real dependency of, if you look at from an end user value delivery perspective, you have to really connect all this intelligence to the end user systems to do better job of managing all the business processes. So the question I've seen from Mr. Rohit Kumar is, and it's directed to Power Grid, so Mr. Mukund, therefore, is from a business process transformation perspective, right? How do you see the role of automation in your enterprise?
Certainly, things, as I was telling, with the implementation of ERP, the way we used to work is got totally changed now. And we are, of course, now we are going to the next level. We are looking for analytics, and we are also trying to implement RPA, and certainly it is going to change the things for us.
Okay. Another question is Mr. Thomas Joseph, to all panelists. Any disruptive automation implementation that either you would like to do from a business process perspective, or that you've seen that has been really effective in your organization? Maybe I can start with Mr. Dalla. Anything that comes to your mind in that area?
Well, one area is adoption of the cloud-based technologies in the government sector.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is not, the acceptance is low as of now. Not many people are, particularly because one of my key domain today is the cyber security. There are a lot many things which can be done in that area in the cloud. And that's something the users think that their data is going into cloud when you go to the cyber security. Actually, it is not the data, it is the headers of the files, etc., which are being read in the cloud, and nothing goes out of your premises. So I'll give you, I mean, there are certain technologies which are, I'll give you just an example of, like, let us say there is if we go for a DDoS, tool. Now, DDoS is something which depends on a lot of intelligence gathered, threat intelligence gathered by the companies which provide the tools. And if you go for on-prem implementation, then first of all, that threat intelligence doesn't come online. I mean, that doesn't come instantaneously, immediately. And there are plenty of sources when you go in the cloud, they integrate plenty of sources to gather that threat intelligence. And the impact is really, really, very fast if a new attack comes of that kind, and it can be really fast service. So this is one area which I feel the government should consider now, the PSUs in particular. I mean, we should consider in going to the cloud for these kind of services. That will definitely be, quite helpful.
And for that very same reason, we have had a cloud offering for a while. And last year, we saw tremendous uptake of the cloud across the board, because I think people recognize that cloud offerings are in fact more secure than the offerings that you can do, because here's an organization totally dedicated to that one skill only.
There are so many, like XDR can be one of the applications which can be, purely cloud based, and that doesn't really, affect the end user in any way. You need only a very thin client to work on that. So there could be various technologies which can help in the cloud. I tell you, I mean, as I was discussing earlier, how the business need helps in bringing in automation. Now, I think everybody will agree that we had been trying to implement e-office in various public sector undertakings for last 4 to 5 years. But the acceptability was less. But as last year the pandemic came, I tell you, this is one tool which has been used the maximum in last 1 year. I mean, today almost 100% of my office work goes on e-office. There's not a single, and if something goes on paper, it is being kept on one side for 72 hours that, okay, we will look into it later. Or the person is being asked to. So this is how, the change has disrupted the earlier way of working. So this is another technology which has really, come up in last 1 year very handy, and has found immediate adoption. So this is how sometimes need of the hour also becomes handy.
Absolutely.
In fact, in Power Grid,
necessity is the mother of innovation.
Yeah. Even in Power Grid, sorry. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Ghosh, please.
Yeah, in Coal India also, the same thing happened during pandemic. The implementation of e-office was almost 100%. So there are a few instances where the situation has changed the mindset of the users. In Coal India, actually, I would like to add one more thing. We are applying technology in so many fields. Latest technology, for example, in hydrological studies, in seismic survey. One other aspect which I will proudly say that the quality control aspect. By digitization, we have been able to analyze the coal quality, which varies from each seam to another seam. It is unpredictable, but due to massive data that has been gathered by our various systems and proper analysis of those data, we have been able to sort of forecast what kind of quality this seam will give in another 7 days. So though this thing is very in a nascent stage, but we are sure that within very short time, our Bishoy Sahab will get very good quality of coal for his thermal power plant.
I'm sure. And I think one thing that comes to my mind when you said that was computer vision has come to a point where for quality control, and I think it can apply across the board to various industries. Computer vision has come to a point where you can do a very effective job of understanding the sort of whatever quality parameters have. And I think there's a lot of talk about this being applied in the health, where you want to understand a CT scan or a brain scan. But I think it very equally can apply to a lot of quality control systems in your enterprises. And You can then connect in all these systems. You can connect intelligence to process through automation systems. And I think that's where the true value of all these systems together can be leveraged. I think we have. Go ahead,
If
Mr.
I would just like to, the last point that you made, Agrawal Sahab, is a very pertinent point for manufacturing industry. But very briefly, the point that I'd like to make is that for it to actually fructify,
Yeah.
the penetration of quality control measures which are digital needs to happen maximum at the MSME level, because these are the people who are supporting manufacturing at the grassroots. And that is where I think we are facing the biggest challenge today, because once you get something, you get a product which is been manufactured by these and which is not getting through these kind of stringent tests and checks, then the battle is lost, because you can at most do a post-mortem.
Right.
So I think as time goes by, because these things need investment and MSMEs have always these issues. But I think that's one business area where people can think, in case we can think of some quality control systems which can be cost effective and which can be given to MSMEs. This will be a game changer for the entire production manufacturing environment in the country.
I think that's a very valid point, and maybe I think one idea could be like GEM has become the centralized way for the government. Maybe if PSUs in similar areas, which are probably leveraging the same MSMEs in maybe same geographical areas, if there was a way to make this technology available to everybody, because I think with mobile, the data collection at source will become very, very simple, right? And all you need to do is that then bring that into a much more, maybe a large PSU powered AI systems, where these things can be analyzed and sent back to the MSME. I think that there could be areas that we could work through in enabling some of these. In fact, this is not technology innovation as much as a business process innovation, where it's possible to do that. Mr. Bishoy, maybe the last question to you, and then we'll wrap up. Since you've gone through 98% process digitization, are there any low-hanging fruits you're seeing from a process automation perspective, where you can now remove the manual data entry, manual checks, and make those things automated? Are there critical priorities that you are seeing in that area?
Yeah, I think it's a very nice question. And that too, we are day and night thinking of how to manage our OT area and improve on that. I think Nathan Saab knows the criticalities of he's a manufacturer of our plants. So what we are thinking of, already we have given a contract for a data lake. So we are planning our asset management, and as well as the creating alerts for different equipment failures by automatic analyzing the PI data and SCADA data. We'll be channeling to cloud, and we'll be utilizing analytics, so that if we can get a prior information on the failure of the machines, that is one of our priority. Second is that the main challenge we will be facing in future for ramp up and ramp down of our large power plants because of increasing RE presence. So that is a challenge, and we are in talk with almost all the manufacturers like BHL, ABB, Toshiba, and other things. We are in method of trial and error, how to do it, and how we can take the advantage of technology in doing that. To what extent we can do, say maybe bigger plants we may not do that much, and say smaller 210 megawatt units we can do that. So that we are in the process of analyzing, and we are also uh, uh, doing some POC sort of thing in one or two plants. That is one of the third one is that the, as you know, last Tapovan incident where natural disaster struck, and a lot of lives were lost because of that. So we will are now planning to use more and more of the drones technology to typically for the hydel plants and other things where terrains are very tough, and yeah, if we can improve on that by analyzing the pictures and other things, if we can get some of the warnings and which will save us in practicing the safety measures, better safety measures. That is our focus. So that we are presently concentrating on.
Wonderful. So I think one thing I can probably add here is that we recently have entered into a partnership with Google, and Google has a very large repository of AI technologies. So with Google's AI to enable a lot of areas that you talked about, Mr. Bishoy, like collecting data using drones. And I think everybody in the panel today has talked about importance of collecting data and then analyzing it for use. So the Google Cloud partnership is specifically targeted to making sure that the Google AI technology can be brought to bear through automation interface for any business process. I think personally for me, it was a very enlightening session, and I really enjoyed talking to you guys and understanding where you guys are. And clearly, the digital is the sort of the need of the hour, and I think PSUs are clearly leading it at the forefront. And pandemic has clearly provided impetus to this, because every person now is forced to and therefore become adjusted to and therefore now becoming enamored with what digital can offer. And I think we're probably on the right path as a country with leaders like yourself in making digital happen on the ground. With that, I'd like to close the session today, and thank you for coming to the session, sharing your views, and hopefully it was productive for everybody to learn from each other's views.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
so much.
governance now.
Thank you,
And
everyone.
Pramod ji, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I really hope this was a fruitful discussion, and we have come out with some great insights about automation and technology and Industry 4.0. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pragya.
Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye.
Have a good day.